Yes, you are audible. Please continue.
Okay. Hello. Hello. So I would like to introduce you to our speaker, Dr. Amit Vilas Sachdev. Am I audible, sir?
Can you please increase your volume?
Okay. Volume increase कर दें. Dr. Amit Vilas Sachdev, MDS microendodontist. He has graduated from Dr. D.Y. Patil Dental College and Hospital. Post-graduation from YMT Dental College and Hospital, 2011. Maintaining two state-of-art specialty clinics with special emphasis on microscopic endodontics and aesthetic dentistry with a clinical experience of more than 17 years. Ex-faculty, D.Y. Patil School of Dentistry, Navi Mumbai, as assistant professor since 2011 to 2018. Was an in-house faculty mentor for fellowship in contemporary endodontics, 1 year, 6-module certificate program. Specialist consultant endodontist in various clinics across Navi Mumbai and Thane districts. Life member of Indian Endodontic Society, life member of Indian Academy of Aesthetic and Cosmetic Dentistry, life member of Indian Dental Association, ex-CDE, Scientific Committee in Charge, IDA Navi Mumbai. Course mentor, conducting hands-on courses in rotatory endodontics and composites since more than 9 to 10 years. Presented papers at various national conferences and also have several publications in various indexed and peer-reviewed journals. Recipient of Best Poster National Award on Regenerative Endodontics in National Conference, Amritsar. Nominated as Best Endodontist Consultant in Navi Mumbai, National Dental Excellence Award 2016. Nominated as Best Endodontist Consultant in Navi Mumbai, India's Most Prominent Dental Awards 2016, National Speaker and Key Opinion Leader, Dental Products of India, Key Opinion Leader and Trainer, GSK Sensodyne, Navi Mumbai region, Educational Instructor, Mentor, Top Doc, and Online Educational Platform. Key Opinion Leader, Pro HS Rotatory Files and Bonded India. Conducted numerous online webinars on different online portals, also conducted various offline training lectures and workshops in various colleges, institutes, and private clinics on topics rotatory endodontics and magnification in endodontics. So, sir, I would like to hand over to you the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Meenal, for this lovely introduction. A warm welcome to everyone. I'll start sharing the screen first of all. Already we are a little late, running behind the time. I guess I'm audible.
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. This one. So Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara. On the occasion of Guru Purnima yesterday itself, I would like, before starting this presentation, I would like to bow to all my gurus who had taught me, and because of them, I'm speaking in front of you. It can be anyone, from a person who's your patient, from your undergraduate teachers to postgraduate teachers, or your colleagues, or your best friend, or in that sense, your wife also. Yeah, true. My wife, she teaches me every day. हर दिन एक lecture होता है घर पे. So to all those gurus, before starting, I would like to dedicate this my presentation. And if you have seen, dentistry has evolved over a period of time. There are a lot of many advancement in the field of dentistry. Rest apart, in the field of endodontics also. So today's topic is about advanced endodontics. We'll be covering some aspects of advancement in endodontics, particularly in the field of diagnosis, the treatment plan, various equipment and armamentarium which have been used in advanced endodontics. So we'll be discussing first with the diagnosis. All of you know a correct diagnosis lead to a successful treatment planning. So correct diagnosis is required. Nowadays, previously there was only X-ray, radiograph along with the clinical examination we used to diagnose the cases. Now with the advent of RVG, we have been more accurate in taking diagnosis. Although I would not say RVG is an advancement right now, because RVG has become a routine now. Almost every clinic is having an RVG. Talking about advancement in diagnosis, I would like to say CBCT. Yes, cone beam computed tomography. It has helped a lot way in the field of diagnosis, in endodontic diagnosis. Believe me, a lot of failure cases, retreatment cases, we were able to save because of this technological advancement. A lot of missed canals could be detected, a lot of MB2s, even fracture lines, crease lines, any missed canals, any anatomical anomalies, these all can be diagnosed. And then after we diagnose, we can treat them as well. So if we have seen over a period of last few decades, the success have been increased, and the failure rate of endodontics has been decreased. It's all because of the advancement in endodontic diagnosis, mainly because of cone beam computed tomography. That's CBCT. It says that we can always see better. If we can see it. So the better we see, just one second. So if we can see better, you can do much more better. With the advancement in magnification in the form of dental loops or dental microscope, we can visualize the tooth much more better. Finer details of anatomy and our canal anastomosis. In case of separate instruments, lot of complications in the floor chamber. All these complications and anatomical anomalies can be easily detected with the help of magnification. One can easily start with the magnification routine with just a dental loops also. We can always start with a 2.5x or 3x loops magnification. A much more detailed uh, presentation on magnification can be given in the later stage if you want. But my dear friends, start using magnification in any form. You will start getting a precise, more clear work. So start with using magnification in any form. Now talking about endodontic treatment. Now all of you know that endodontic treatment consists of three phases or three parts. There's axis cavity preparation, the biomechanical preparation or shaping and cleaning nowadays it is called, and the third phase or third part is obturation. You must have seen all of it nowadays. We always stress on axis cavity preparation. We always say the axis is leads to success of endodontic treatment. If you do proper axis opening, it will eventually increase the success rate of your root canal treatment. So we always stress on good proper axis opening with straight line axis, complete deroofing of the pulp chamber. This is what we generally strive upon or stress upon. But have you seen that endodontically treated teeth become more brittle and hence more prone to fracture? Why is it so? Recent studies have shown mostly it was because of the loss of moisture from the tooth. But if you see, recent studies have shown that only 9% moisture loss is there after root canal treatment. Then why is it is so that most endodontically treated teeth become more brittle and hence become more prone to fracture? Thus, all endodontic treated teeth need a cuspal coverage or crowns. We'll find out the answer soon. Just take a look at this pre-op radiograph. A lower molar, axis opening done. If we have seen complete deroofing of the pulp chamber, straight line axis, proper shaping and cleaning done afterwards, and then complete obturation. Even the fourth distal canal that has been cleaned and shaped and filled properly. You can always appreciate the radiolucency at the mesial half, mesial root. Now, after 18 months recall, you still see a radiographic lesion on the mesial root. Now, why is this radiographic lesion? In spite of good endodontic treatment, in spite of good apical control and apical feel. So here, I would like to stress some key features over here. Now, if we see this cavity preparation or axis preparation, this root canal preparation, this blue line indicates a complete deroofing of the pulp chamber, or you can see more of a deroofing of the pulp chamber or over deroofing of the pulp chamber, which lead to gouging of the root chamber over there. Also, there is loss of pericervical dentine. Now, what is pericervical dentine? We'll discuss later. Also, if you see with the yellow arrow, that shows over enlargement of the coronal. That could be because of gauge grid drill or over enlargement with the coronal shaper files, which lead to strip and furcal perforation sometimes. So how this should be managed or how should be this modified? Now this same root canal preparation could be modified in such a way. Now if you see the right hand picture, the cavity preparation could be more or less conservative so that a lot of pericervical dentin could be saved. Also, the or enlargement of the coronal part could be avoided. So according to these studies, it is nowadays shown that loss of tooth structure or marginal integrity is the major cause of endodontic postoperative failure or some other fracture cases. So nowadays, all the trends have been changing. Nowadays, if you see, the trend is more of a biomimetic dentistry, more of conservation of the tooth structure, and more of less and less. It is more of like a minimalistic approach to our endodontic practice. In that line, over here also we can see there is, because of the over enlargement of gauge grid drill, there is gouging and perforation over there. And there, what I was telling about pericervical dentin. Now, what is this pericervical dentin? Now, pericervical dentin is that area which is 4 mm above the crestal bone and 6 mm apical to the crestal bone. This area is very critical and should be always preserved. This area is irreplaceable. We cannot repair it again because no restorative material can replace a natural tooth structure. Why is this important? This pericervical dentin is important because it transmits the occlusal forces onto the root. So if your pericervical dentin is lost or violated, a lot of occlusal forces will directly hit to your root, leading to root fracture. Also, it is more important for maintaining a ferrule effect, that's 2 to 3 mm above the cervical structure, so that the crown will be holding. And it's very important for a good coronal seal as well as good post-endodontic restoration. So with this, nowadays the trend is all about minimalistic endodontics, that is minimal invasive endodontics. It has changed now from your traditional access cavity. Now we have modified the access cavity. The modification is like a conservative access cavity, ultra conservative access cavity, and a truss cavity, access cavity. Now, what is this traditional access cavity? You already know traditional access cavity means extending for prevention, extension for prevention, proper retention form, extending towards the grooves and margins so that all the canals can be visualized in one go, in one view. So what do you do in conservative access cavity? We start like your traditional access cavity in the center of the fossa, occlusal fossa, and then extend that cavity with a minimalistic approach, not extending too much and preserving as much of tooth structure as possible. The ultra conservative access cavity, that is also called as ninja axis. That means there is a center, in the center of occlusal force, we put a center hole, and the canals are approached in an oblique projection, an oblique direction. You can see from this picture over here, this is our traditional access cavity, flaring, giving a lot of flares. And this is a conservative access cavity. You can see we have saved a lot of tooth structure over here. And this is an ultra conservative access opening. It is also called as ninja axis opening. If you see the amount of tooth structure, there is a small hole inside in the occlusal force, and then it is extended like this in an oblique projection towards the canal, so that the marginal tooth structure is preserved. So this is the diagrammatic representations of the traditional axis cavity, conservative axis cavity, and truss axis cavity. Now, what is truss axis cavity? The truss axis cavity means there is, if you see over here, only two holes or two axis cavities are done and preserving the intact dentine, which is the sound intact dentine in between the axis cavity. The purpose or motive is just to preserve the intact dentin which is there. So we just make a hole or axis opening only towards the canal opening where you anticipate according to the preclinical preoperative X-rays. So this is the truss axis. So last, you can see the lower image. You can see the traditional axis cavity, how it is extending towards the conservative axis cavity and the truss axis cavity. There is one more thing called as guided endodontic axis cavity. This is something called as how do you do for a implant planning? We take a CBCT image, we take a CBCT investigation, then we make a custom-made stents are made over there. On that, sleeves is attached so that exact pinpoint axis opening where the canal will be there. They are made and a proper axis opening is done through this custom-made stent itself. This is at initial stage itself. The biggest advantage with this is we can be ultra conservative and accurate to this with this approach. The biggest disadvantage with this is that it is a little costly because you have to get a CBCT done. You have to make a custom made stent over there. You may have to make the sleeves, all those things cost a lot. So these are the modifications or advancements in endodontic axis cavity. From your traditional axis cavity, we are moved from your conservative axis cavity to your ultra conservative axis cavity, something called as ninja axis, to truss axis, where we just cut through the only through the axis openings with the intermittent dentin as it is. And last is the guided endodontic axis cavity. Now you must be wondering, if you have been about all those things, whether those axis cavities, preserving the axis cavity, do really serve the purpose of complete debridement, or all those, what is the weightage or what is the advantages of these axis cavities over your traditional axis cavity. Now there have been innumerable studies across the few years showing mixed reaction. Some of them have shown that because of this modified axis cavity, the fracture resistance have been increased. The teeth with traditional axis cavity show lower fracture strength. Some of the teeth perform better and do not require any tooth structure, or you can say cuspal coverage. But there have been many studies which shows that it does not offer any significant advantage in comparable. And the main important is that incomplete debridement. Even Stephen Cohen, great endodontist, you must have reading all those books about Stephen Cohen, have in the recent studies concluded that ninja axis, that ultra conservative axis opening, is deficient, and the disinfection was significantly compromised after root canal preparation with conservative axis cavities. And because of that, the overall goal of complete debridement is lost, which compromises the prognosis of the teeth. Even there are high chances that small axis openings results sometimes in missing out in extra canals, undercleaned canals, undershaped canals, underfilled canals. Here many times missed canals, anatomy anomalies can be missed because of the limited axis opening or conservative axis opening. In studies, it has been found that finding out or tracing out MB2 is much more with your traditional axis cavity. If you have seen from the trade rate of finding out MB2 with the traditional axis cavity is 60%, whereas it's almost reduced to half, maybe 31% if you do axis opening through your ninja axis opening. So the clinician should always focus on striking the right amount of equilibrium between traditional endodontic preparation and the minimal preparation, as well as balancing both these type of cavities, and use a particular design which would result in less failure and achieve the final goal of a successful endodontic treatment. So we should always take an assess according to the clinical condition. My personal opinion, I would like to generally go for a conservative axis cavity, not so much favor of truss axis opening or ninja axis cavity, because I always feel that my canal should be completely debrided. It should be properly irrigated, cleaned and flushed. So I'd like to see within ultra conservative. On the same hand, somehow I have, in case of lower anteriors, it is always better to do with a minimal preparation, because already a lot of tooth structure could be that lower anteriors are have a less of tooth structure, so it can be easily saved. So it's up to a clinical condition and your expertise how you can get balance those things. So strike a balance among those things. It should be amount of, you should always try to not miss out any canals or complete debridement, as well as you should be properly preserving or conserving the tooth structure which is there. So this was about axis opening, the modification in the axis opening, advanced cavity. Now, other advances in endodontics includes the apex locator, X-Smart or endomotor, any endomotor right now. Some of the endomotors come with inbuilt apex locator. Now, we are not going to go in detail in all those things, because this you might have learned in during your rotary. If you have attended any rotary courses, at that time you must have known all those things. And nowadays, endomotor have become a norm itself, not like an advanced thing which it was previously. Nowadays, endomotors also come with a reciprocation feature also. Also, nowadays, some of the endomotors come with a ledge management also. We can have a programmed motors, they already come. So we are not going to talk about these right now in this seminar. We are going to talk something most advanced, what I will always feel, and which you should incorporate in your endodontic practice at some amount of extent, is something called as ultrasonics. Yes, I'm talking about ultrasonics, not the ultrasonic use, not the ultrasonic tips what you use for the scaling purpose, but there are specialized ultrasonic scalar tips which are used for endodontics. First and foremost, the use of ultrasonics was introduced to dentistry for cavity preparation using an abrasive slurry. The use in endodontics was first introduced by Rickman in 1957, and the term endosonics, that means endodontics with ultrasonics, that's called endosonics, was coined by Martin and Cannon. It is defined as the ultrasonic and synergistic action of root canal instrumentation and disinfection. Basically, ultrasound is sound energy with a frequency above the range of human hearing, that is about 20 kHz. There are basically two methods of producing ultrasound, that is magnetostriction or piezoelectric. Magnetostriction is basically which converts electromagnetic into mechanical energy, and piezoelectric principle is a crystal which changes dimension when an electrical charge is applied. Basically, in piezoelectrical cycle units, what we use nowadays with ultrasonic scalers, what we use is generally piezoelectric units. They offer more cycles per second, that is 40 versus 24 kHz. The tips work in a linear back and forth motion, like a piston-like motion, which is ideal for endodontics, or in case most of surgical endodontics, whereas magnetostrict student unit produces a figure of 8, which is not used for surgical and endodontic use. So what happens generally in ultrasonic, the endosonics? There is basically two phenomena, that is a cavitation and acoustic streaming. The cavitation, simple in words, is the process by which bubbles are formed from the action of the file, which becomes unstable, collapse, and causes a vacuum-like implosion. Whereas acoustic streaming creates a small, intense circular fluids around the instruments. It provides and produces a rapid vortex-like motion around the vibrating object, that is the ultrasonic file. As per se, cavitation does not play any role in the root canal debridement. It is acoustic streaming which plays an important role in the root canal debridement or disinfection. So let's see what about ultrasonic files which are there for ultrasonics. A classification, if you want to classify according to features, it could be ultrasonic tips can be classified as active tip or a non-active tip. Active tip has a cutting tip. It could be a smooth or a milled, that is machine milled. It could be diamond coated or a non-diamond coated. Diamond coated mostly are used for surgical endodontics. It could be stainless steel or nickel titanium. Or it could be a connection type. It could be classified according to connection type. Either it could be based on satellite scaler or an EMS scaler. So one thing you have to make a note whenever you're ordering or starting your ultrasonic files or tips, you have to mention to your dealer that whether your scaler is an EMS scaler or a satellite or a satellite scaler. According to that, the connection type are different. You can see active tip or a smooth tip. It's a diamond coated or non-diamond coated, milled or smooth, nickel titanium or stainless steel. Ultrasonics tips can also be classified as axis refinement tips, or vibrated tips, bulk removal tips, or the troughing tips. This is according to the clinical application where they are used. If the tips are used for axis refinement or just to refine those cavities, these are called axis refinement tips. Vibrated tips are used for if you want to remove any post or any obstruction. In that case, a separate instrument or silver point. So those tips, what you use for retrieval of those are called vibrated tips. Bulk removal tips are those tips which is to remove bulk of the dentine in case of, and troughing tips are used for example, if you want to find out any missed canals, for example, you want to trace out or trough out the MB2 canals, for those you have to use the troughing tips. So these tips are classified according to the clinical applications. They also classified according to the clinical area where it is used. For example, if it is used in the coronal pulp chamber, coronal pulp, those tips can be used for like axis refinement or finding calcified canals or removing pulp stones. So those tips are different. They also classified according to if they are used in the coronal and a middle third canals. For example, removal of any separated instruments, root canal post, fractured post, or in case some of the time we have to irrigate the canals or placing of MTA. And the apical third ultrasonic tips are those tips which are used for the surgical tips in case of apexectomy and retrograde endodontics. So this is a basic classification of ultrasonic tips according to the types and according to the clinical scenario or clinical used, where they are used. These are Gary curves. These are the first tip which has been used for endodontic surgery. Case tip that is by Singjing came that is used for especially endodontic surgeries. But what I use in day-to-day practice are those ultrasonic tips from Dentsply. They are called as static tips. Although you can use any other company also. Nowadays, Woodpecker have also come with very good scalar tips. They have also got very good D600. They are very good files. Basically, what I like about static tips are there are 5 range of tips, and there's one tip for every clinical condition. So you can know which tip to use where. It is specific for every use. For example, the Startex #1 tip is used for axis cavity refinement. It has a non-active tip, so does not accidentally perforate the floor chamber, the pulp chamber, and it has an active lateral part which eliminates interference. So we get a direct access to the canal. So this tip is used for basically for axis cavity refinement. If you want to find out, trace out or the MB2 canals in the upper molars, we can use Startex #2 used for finding out MB2 canals. Startex #3 tips are used for removing any obstruction that could be pulp stone, any calcification if you are encountering during the pulp chamber opening, that is in the coronal pulp chamber. So you can use the Startex #3. It is an active tip. The reason because active tip because it has to cut down the obstruction. So if you've seen the Startex #1 tip as a non-active tip, because the main purpose is to refine the cavity. And in this case, the Startex #3, the purpose is to remove the obstruction or cut through the obstruction, cut through the pulp calcification pulp stones. Startex #4 is used for metal post removal. In case you got a post removal, is used. Startex #5 are used for pulp chamber floor. You have to just again refine the pulp chamber floor. They are used for that. So basically, start from 1 to 5. I generally prefer using it #2 and #3 for major of my cases. Even if you buy these #2 and #3, that will serve a lot of cases for your routine endodontic practice. Now I'm talking about your routine endodontic practice, not a specialized like a thing. For example, if you are encountering a lot of retreatment cases, for example, post removal cases you are getting. So in those cases, you have to also use a Startex #4. So where are ultrasonics, the advanced endodontics can be used? It can be used in axis refining, finding out calcified canals, removal of attached pulp stones, removal of any intracanal obstruction. It could be a separate instrument, it could be metal post, it could be silver points, increased action of irrigating solution, ultrasonic condition, gutta percha, mineral traction placement, MTA placement, and also in the surgical endodontics. Now here what we can see, there is one video showing. Appreciate, this is the Startex #3 what I have used. This is used to remove coronal obstruction, that is the pulp stone. You can see a large pulp stone which is now I'm treating a lower upper molar. Sorry, the pulp stone is visible under the microscope. It's moving, and with the vibratory motion tip, we'll be able to remove that. You can use a spoon excavator, a sharp endodontic spoon excavator also to remove that thing. But before that, it should be a little loose enough. Now we can appreciate this is a large chunk of pulp stone which has been attached over there. So why ultrasonics have to be used in this case? Because if you try to do it with your access opening burrs or end-piece burrs, there are much more chances that you might perforate the floor of the pulp chamber. But with the ultrasonic, you are sure that you will not going to cut to the pulp chamber, and it will be more of a conservative cutting. Again, one more reading showing. Now we had removed the pulp zone. Now we are doing something called axis refinement. I'll be switching off to my StarText number 1 tip. And I'm just axis refinement. You can see I'm refining the walls, just removing all the debris, making a flare. So this is axis refinement of the cavity. The same thing about your MB2 canal scouting. As all you know, there is MB2 is situated just below 3 to 4 mm below the MB1, a line drawn over here, and exactly opposite mostly to the distal buccal. So you have to take your ultrasonic scalar tip. In this case, we can use an StarText number 2 and start roughing around this area. Remove the dent, overlying dentin over here. Once you remove that, you'll feel a catch with your Endodontic Explorer, DG16 Explorer, and with your K files. Just catch it, and then afterwards you can prepare that cavity. So one more advantage of using ultrasonics for MB2 canal or axis refinement is that with the ultrasonic, if you observe with your handpiece burr, with your eroder handpiece, the vision gets blocked. But with the ultrasonic tip, we can get easily visibility increase with the ultrasonic tips, because the burr head is such big that you cannot see the axis cavity opening over there through the mirror. But with this ultrasonic, the visibility is also increased. Also, there is more of precise cutting, more proper cutting over there, and a more conservative cavity cutting. So here we have found out the MB2 canal. Ultrasound is also used for removal of any separated instrument. Now, how to remove these separated instruments? First of all, you have to there is something called a staging platform and all those things. What do you do in staging platform? You cut down a modified Gary-Dunn drill. You cut down through this dentin, and then you use your ultrasonic tips.
This animation depicts the removal of a separated instrument with ultrasonics. In this example, the instrument segment is embedded in the middle third of the canal space. The canal has been enlarged coronally to enhance the access of the ultrasonic tip. The ability to actually see the instrument fragment is required. The choice of ultrasonic instrument is dependent upon the canal size. If the instrument is higher in the canal, a larger Pro-Ultra endo tip can be utilized. Thinner, longer tips are utilized deeper in the canal. In this example, Pro-Ultra endo tip number 4 is worked around the visible portion of the instrument fragment in a counterclockwise manner. The ultrasonic energy removes tooth structure and vibrates the fragment loose. Switching to smaller tips, in this case Pro-Ultra endo tip number 6, is often advisable. Tip number 6 completes the loosening of the fragment.
So this was about removal application of ultrasonic in the removal of or retrieval of separated instruments. It can be also used for removal of fractured metallic post.
This animation depicts the removal of a post using ultrasonics. With the coronal portion of the post already exposed, work begins with the Pro-Ultra endo tip number 1. This instrument is used initially at power setting number 5 on the P5. The key is to rotate the instrument counterclockwise around the post. The vibration will have a tendency to heat up the post. Intermittent use of a water spray will cool the area and prolong the life of the ultrasonic tip. The vibration loosens the cement, and the counterclockwise motion helps to unscrew threaded posts. Pro-Ultra endo tip number 1 is meant for difficult jobs and can be used up to power setting 13 or 14. With the post removed, smaller instruments are used to break up the remaining cement. The smaller instruments must be utilized at much lower power settings. The typical maximum is 4 for Pro-Ultra endo tips 5 through 8.
So this was ultrasonic use. We can also use ultrasonics as an indirect form to retrieval of silver points. Ultrasonics plays a very vital role in the irrigation part also, in complete debridement also. Now, if you have seen, these are the canals, the cross section of the root canal. There are lateral spaces, canal isthmuses, which cannot be cleaned with your routine endodontic file. One more cone microcity image showing the red part which has been instrumented with your rotary files, and the green part is the unclean or untouched part, which can be cleaned only through your irrigating solution or with an ultrasonic scaling properly, ultrasonic tips. Now, irrigation in ultrasonics can be achieved through either with the sonics or ultrasonics. In sonic, we have an endo activator, which is the most common. Nowadays, we have a lot of sonic activator from different various companies. It basically produces sonic vibration, which is almost less powerful than your ultrasonics. Now, how does this work? It produces basically a cavitation, a bubble which bursts and follows an acoustic streaming also.
Produce the hydrodynamic phenomenon. This new
You
technology
can
provides
see
an
in this way
advantage
we
over traditional methods and
manually
offers a safer,
activate
better, and
your
faster
irrigating
way
solution
to
with
achieve
an
success in the
hydrodynamic
following clinical
mechanism.
applications: three-dimensional
It helps
debridement,
in complete debridement, removal of the smear layer as well as the biofilm. Now, this was about sonics. Now, next is about the passive ultrasonic irrigation of the root canal. That means using an ultrasonic files for the irrigation purpose in the root canals. It was first described by Weller et al. The term passive does not actually means passive. It is actually, in fact, active, but it was introduced because passive means the non-cutting action of the ultrasonic activated file. If you see, there is something called cutting and non-cutting tips. So basically, those non-cutting tips were referred to as a passive, but it does the active mechanisms. It basically relies on the transmission of acoustic energy from an oscillating file or an ultrasonic file or a smooth into the irrigated into the root canal. The energy is transmitted by means of ultrasonic waves and can induce acoustic streaming and cavitation of the irrigant. There are two methods where you should use. There is direct ultrasonic method, in which there is continuous flush of irrigant from the ultrasonic handpiece itself. Something in the line of self-adjusting file, if you know SAF, or an intermittent flushing technique by using a syringe delivery. Now, what is that? We'll go into detail about that. First and foremost, what is the file what we use generally for your passive ultrasonic irrigation? This is a file which is come from satellite. This is an IRISEF file. If you see this IRISEF file, it is like a bub brooch. It has to be attached to your scalar handpiece, and then afterwards, it is basically designed for safe removal of the smear layer, dentin debris, and bacteria from the root canal. It is used in passive ultrasonic irrigation, most commonly with the sodium hypochlorite. It is safe, parallel, and non-cutting, and then can be used for in the complete root canal. It produces a microcavitation and micro steaming. It is non-cutting, and most commonly it is used just 1 mm short of the curvature. It should be not directly put into the hole into that canal. It should be placed towards the canal, towards the middle or third. It should not be placed beyond the curvature. Now, how does this mechanism happen? Basically, following all the irrigation protocol which has been laid down. That means sodium hypochlorite, saline, using that, and then afterwards chlorhexidine used in some of case of pre-treatment cases. The irrigant is delivered to the root canal by normally a syringe 30 gauge syringe needle. The root canal is pulled or flushed or filled with your sodium hypochlorite or the irrigant of your choice, mostly sodium hypochlorite. It is then activated with the use of an ultrasonic oscillating file or instrument. It should be 1 to 3 minutes irrigation with continuous intermittent flushing. The irrigant is again replenished or refilled again after each ultrasonic activation cycle. So basically, we fill the canal with your ultrasonic irrigant, that is sodium hypochlorite. We activate with an ultrasonic file, that is Erisave, for 1 to 3 minutes, and then afterwards we change the ultrasonic irrigating solution again. This cycle has to be in almost 3 to 4 times. Again, it should be inserted 1 mm short of the working length. One more important thing is that this Erisave or ultrasonic file should be able to vibrate freely in the apical area on the root canal. It should not bind to any of the tile, otherwise it might break over there. A more simple or more economical instrument is something called a geo file. It comes with a money in a set of 15 to 40. There are other different companies also like Endostar, which produces geo files. Again, it comes with a adapter or attachment which can be attached. Again, you have to specify whether you are using a EMS scaler, satellite scaler, or woodpecker scaler. Because of that, the attachments are different. In this case, like for example, E2, either it could be E2 woodpecker or a satellite. The file should be put inside, then it is tightened. The tip file should be according to the prepared canal. The root canal should be enlarged before putting in the rest of the file, because this ultrasonic file is not for preparation of the canal, it is for only for debrided canal. So you should always put this ultrasonic file in already enlarged or prepared root canal. Again, I am stressing this is not for canal preparation, it is only for canal debridement. So it should be used only for complete debridement once the canal preparation is over. It should be kept 2 to 3 mm short of the apical position. You fill the canal with your irrigant, sodium hypochlorite, and then continuously in a pumping motion do the debridement. You also remove the bacteria, the smear layer, biofilm. It is a very efficient means of achieving complete debridement disinfection of the root canal system. Now, concluding the part of this of your presentation is something called a bioceramic sealer. Now, if you see, sealer are basically a zinc oxide based sealer or a resin based sealer or a calcium hydroxide based sealer. Nowadays, the recent advancement comes in the form of bioceramic sealer. Now, it's completely easy to use, and the most important aspect or most important feature of this is it's very biocompatible. It forms a chemical bond with the dentine. It forms a hydroxyapatite crystals, and it is well tolerated by the periapical tissues. So that means if some amount of sealer goes beyond the periapical region, it is generally well tolerated and complete healing is formed. So all those lateral canal fin systemacies are completely filled with your bioceramic sealer. They've got good radiopacity, there's good healing abilities, properties. It forms a complete three-dimensional seal. Some of the available products, Seracell, iRoot SP, BioRoot SP, Endosequence from Safe Endo. These are right now a lot of commercial material available there. There is also something called as MTA based sealer, which has an MTA. These you can use for open apices cases, or if some of the perforation cases, you can use that MTA based sealer. Again, these are a little costly, but these are used for specific cases. And last thing is the thermoplastic injectable obturation system, where you use a down pack and a backfill system. With a down pack, you use a pluggers to pack your molten GP. In this case, we use a alpha form of GP, that is heated gutta percha pellets. in a form of gun. It is loaded. It is cut short with a heating instrument. That is a down pack instrument. And then afterwards, the remainder of the canal is filled with a backfill gun. It is thermoplasticized. It is also thermoplasticized injectable data perturbation. That is one of the most advances. It is more of a vertical compaction technique. The advantage again with your lateral compaction technique is it's more accurate, more three-dimensional obturation is achieved with this, with lateral fills. So this was all about whatever short presentation we could give about indigenous stimulated time, because endo is, I believe, a lot more to learn. And as Robin Sharma rightly said, the moment I learn a lot, I realize how little I know. So there is a lot more advancement and a lot more things to be learned in endo. This is just a small glimpse of what all nowadays advancement is there in endodontics. You can start utilizing or using those advancements in your endodontic practice right from tomorrow itself, with the basics starting with your loops, starting with the ultrasonic scalar tips. You can buy from any kit which is there and start using that. You can applying rubber dam. So before that, I would like to thank you all of you for patiently listening. We'll open the dais for questions, and thank you, Dr. Madhvi Jadhav, Dr. Munil Jain, and the Dental Expert Academy for inviting me and sharing my little bit knowledge what I have insight about advanced endodontics. They also have come up with this advanced endodontic course. This was just a 1 hour small lecture, or you can say introduction to advanced endodontics. There is a lot more to learn about endodontics, and if you really want to learn, we have a coming up a lecture workshop along with that, a whole day workshop. That's on 20th August, I guess. Yes, 20th August. The topics covered will be endodontic retreatment, criteria for success and failure, decision making in treatment, surgical versus non-surgical treatment. We'll be teaching about all the GP removal techniques with the rotary solvent technique, irrigation, single multiple visit, different use of ultrasonic tips for irrigation, axis refinement, instrument retrieval, tracing extra canals, mixed canals, management of pulp stone, removal, perforation repair, advanced thermoplastic obturation techniques, and a lot more, many of those things which you'll learn. So if those who are interested can contact with the Dental Expert Academy team. Also, these are my numbers. You can follow me anything if you want. I will stop sharing right now. And if you have any questions, we'll open a dial for questions.
So Dr. Shyam Sundar has some question. Dr. Amit, if you can address it.
Yes. Any suggestions for gauging calcified canals or partially blocked canals? So, Dr. Shyam Sundar, for gauging calcified canals or partially blocked canals, first and foremost, you have to know what is about the calcification, where it is, whether it's a completely calcified canals. So there are specifically ultrasonic tips which can help you for treating those calcified canals. For example, you can use a Startex number 3 tips for giving a calcified canals. Then afterwards, you have to periodically check whether you're growing it troughing properly. In some of the cases, if the patient can afford all those things, you can get a normal small single section CBCT done of those things, so that we can judge the exact amount where it is, the dimensions where it is axis opening is done. And once you get the axis canal feel, then you have to periodically check with an X-ray so that whether you're going in the proper canal itself. You can use a dfinder files. There are specifically C+ files which are there, which help in your calcified canal. Always use a lot of lubricant in those cases and use with a 8-number file. Always start with 8-number or 10 file. This fixed taper versus variable taper file system, how to decide? Dr. Tushar is asking. Yes, Dr. Tushar, I always believe, or I always follow fixed taper system. I don't believe or I don't use most of the taper file system because I know what my taper ultimate file taper will be. I generally follow 4% taper in my mesial canal. If I'm doing the lower molar, for example, my mesiobuccal and mesial canal preparation will be around 4%, and distal or a palatal preparation would be around 6% taper. Although it differs according to clinical conditions. In some of the cases, for example, if it is a young age patient, I may go ahead with the 6% taper also in the mesobuccal or distobuccal canal also. Hope that answers the question. Any single file, Dr. Sadaf is asking, any single file system you can suggest for rotary endo? Also, how do you object when prepared with such system? Personally, I don't I don't recommend mostly single file system. You can use in some of the cases, but single file system is not the answer for every routine cases. See, every tooth is different and every canal is different. So you cannot prepare one canal according to one file system. I have one of the case where I had used 3 different file system. For example, I use an MB, I prepared an MB canal with different files, distobuccal with a different file system, and palatal with a different file system. So I generally don't prefer using a file system, single file system. Although nowadays, if you have seen, there is hardly any file system. You go for any preparation now, it's almost a 3-file system what we use. Mostly a coronal opening files, sometimes we use, or a glide path file, and a 4% or 6% file what we used. How do you object with this system? Generally, if you are doing a bias ceramic sealer obtrusion, it's a simple procedure. Like you have to pump in with the sealer. It's an injectable form of sealer, and then object with the consequent file system. For example, if you are prepared till 25.6%, you have to use a 25.6% GP cone over there. This basically nowadays is more of a single cone obturation system, what generally do. But again, if it is a wide canal, you have to make some space for a lateral compaction also. But the gold standard always remains the thermoplastic obturation system, that is vertical compaction. Anyone else?
Any suggestions for rotary
For-
files for severely curved canals by Sundar again?
Okay, Dr. Samchandra, again, I would not like to go with or suggest any brand, but I would like to go for I will tell you to understand the science behind that management of curved canals. So basically, in curved canals, what you have to do, you have to prepare your canal in phase wise. That's what I follow. Then divide your canal into 3 parts. That is the coronal part, middle part, and the apical part. So you prepare your canal part according to that. And in those cases, use a glide path file. Start with the 10 number of files and limit your preparation to maybe around 4% itself. Now, what file 4% you can use? You can use with your Neoendo file system also. You can use a ProTaper Gold file system also. You can use a HighFlex CM file also. Any file system we can use, whichever you are comfortable. But don't over prepare. That means don't use a 6% files in those severely poor canals. So again, brand is not a day. How to decide till what number canal should be enlarged? Yes. Dr. Tushar, this is something called as apical gauging, although this is not a part of today's seminar, but I would like to answer that question. So it depends. This is something called as apical gauging. So what you do in apical gauging, it depends on your pre-op radiograph. See the radiograph, how the canal is there. So for example, there is one, if you see Grossman old school technique, they tell that the canal should be prepared till at least 3 times to the first file which binds to the canal. For example, if you have prepared the open up the root canal and the first file which you put a 10 number file, then you put a 50 number file. The 50 number file is binding to the canal. So that means you have to prepare till at least 3 times the first file is bind to that. That means that does not mean implicates 15 into 3, that's 45. It implies 15, that's 20, 25, 30. So that means your canal should be prepared till 30. So this principle was laid down by Grossman sir in his book Endodontic Practice, but this applies to your hand files. When I'm talking about rotary files, so when you're preparing your rotary files, for example, if you're prepared, in this case, I would like to say, give an example of pro tapers, since pro tapers are most commonly used or most commonly used. If you have prepared your canal with F1, now how to decide whether you have to prepare till F1, F2 or F3? So in that case, to prepare your F1 file, prepared with your F1 file, and then subsequent, you have to take a 20 number K file, because that's the same taper which is there in F1. You put it inside the canal and see whether it binds to the canal. If it is binding to the canal, that means the canal is, you should stop there itself. If the file, 20 number file is loose in the canal, that means you have to prepare, or that is till F2. This is how you gauge the canals. Hope that answers the question. Anyone else?
I request all the participants to kindly on their videos so that we can have a screenshot of our screen, so that we can have a group photo together. Depends, once everyone on their screen, please take a photo of us. Thanks. Right. Everyone has.
E-certificate should be provided those who are on the screen itself. Now Dr. Nosin has just on her video because she wants her e-certificate, I guess.
So thank you so much, sir, for your valuable time.
Thank you so much, Patience Learning, and inviting
Thank
me.
you. Thank you, Beach Mediclinic Private Limited. And thank you all the participants for the patience listening. Hope you loved the session. For 20th August course, you can please contact me for the same. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Please also leave a feedback how the course was that, how we can improve, any suggestions over that. And see you on 20th August.
Yes.
Those are interested.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.